All right, we're recording again. My name's Luke Angstadt. This is my podcast, Knowledge Wars. I'm here with Rick Weber. I've gotten to know Rick's personal story. Rick has been embroiled in just an insane legal battle for 36 years, since 1986, since he has been falsely accused of rape, and he's gone over the details with me on numerous videos. We just recorded one earlier this evening, just kind of recapping, hitting the main points, because we've done one maybe a month or so ago that was a little over 2 hours long, where we went into very great detail. But Rick told me that he would feel much better if we did, if we did like some briefer ones and just stuck to the bullet points, because he felt like maybe it would the first video was too long. But just to recap, Rick, just to bring us back up to speed, the last time when we finished off the last video here, you were talking about the psychiatrist who purportedly interviewed the alleged rape victim who accused you of rape, and has pretty much made your life a living hell for 36 years. But the psychiatrist who supposedly had been counseling this girl, not once did she ever mention this, which is just insane, on top of everything else. I mean, obviously the alibi from and I'm kind of jumping around, so if anybody's coming at this at the first time, it might not make sense. But to recap, May 2nd of 1986, you were accused of rape. You come in with an ironclad alibi, with 20 people, 20 witnesses that can attest that you were somewhere else on that date. That there was no way in hell that you could have possibly done what you were accused of doing, because they saw you at this Wide World of Sports bodybuilder sporting event. So and you go into the trial the first day. I think this is the joke, because it's like, come on, I can bring a whole crowd of people in and say, hey, I was here when you said I was doing this. This is ridiculous. They're going to throw the case out. But no, next thing you know, there's a continuance, and they say, oh, it may not have been this exact specific date that this young 13-year-old girl accused you of, but it could have been any day from March 1st to March 30th of 1986, which is just on the face of it.
May 1st.
Oh, I'm sorry, May 1st to May
1st
of 1986, which is
Yes.
just absolutely asinine on the face of it. I mean, anybody with two brain cells knocking around in their skull will realize that this is an obvious lie. I mean, you come back, and when you come out of prison, you're looking for the records of your first trial, and there are no records whatsoever. I mean, they ask for your DNA, and she says, "Oh, I don't want to give DNA." It's just one thing after another, Rick. Right? So where we were at at the end of the last video, you were talking about the two psychiatrists who bring us up to speed, because I'm just paraphrasing your words, but bring us up to speed where we left off at the end.
Okay, I'll just read it verbatim off of the I've got the transcripts right here.
Sure.
So this is the two psychiatrists that that the state attorney used. They were never subpoenaed for the trial, so they were never in trial. So the jury never heard any of their testimony, but they heard the state attorney claim that this poor girl was going to have to suffer for the rest of her life because of what I allegedly did to her.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's the exact wording from the psychiatrist at my sentencing. My parents, we had dismissed the public defender that we had, and my parents had hired an attorney. And so this is verbatim from the transcripts. The two psychiatrists, one's name was Miss Wilkinson, and the other was Mr. Graziano. Now, Miss Wilkinson testified first, and in her statement, her name is Joyce Wilkinson. The judge asked what she would want him to know, and Miss Wilkinson replied that I am the counselor at the school that the girl went to, and she said I got to know the Weber family, but she had never met me until the day of my sentencing. I've never met this young man, but I worked in a counseling situation with the girl at request, and at no time during our sessions did she ever mention this person's name, or had she mentioned that she had ever been raped by anyone. So that was her testimony.
Wow.
Then we moved down. Then we moved down to the during the time my attorney asked during the time of the counsel with this girl, did she ever mention suicide attempts to you? And if so, was it before May of 1986 or after May of 1986? The witness, being the psychiatrist, says, "Oh, she did. She did have a suicide attempt. To the best of my recollection, it was prior to the time in question." So then the court thanks her for her testimony, and then the next psychiatrist, his name is Albert Graziano, and the court asked, "What would you have me know, Mr. Graziano?" And Mr. Graziano's response was, "I am a counselor at the school where the girl went to, and I was also the young man's teacher at O'Galley High School. I have known this young person since he was 15 years old. As personal knowledge of him, I always found him to be of high integrity and good morals. We also went to the same church, so he knew me from church as well.
Mhm.
I really wanted to approach the issue of the counseling. This young lady, I had an occasion to counsel her when Miss Wilkinson was absent. She needed someone to talk with. There were many occasions I counseled with her and her mother, and at no time has either her or her mother ever divulged to me anything of this incident that may have happened. On the suicide issue, I talked with her about that. When I talked to her about that, the reason for the suicide, this was prior to the matter. She said the reason for the suicide was because she was having family problems with her mother. This is the reason for taking the whole bottle of pills that she took at that time. And then this is when the state attorney chimes in, and he basically um, asked the judge if he could ask a question, and the judge said yes. So the state attorney asked the psychiatrist, for each individual, are you aware there is a psychotherapist patient privilege in our Florida evidence laws as to what people tell you in counseling is confidential? Mr. Graziano replied, well, and Mr. Beam cut him off by saying, that's a yes or no answer. Mr. Graziano replied, that's an inappropriate question. And then the court steps in and says, I don't think so. Actually, I was concerned about it. This is the judge talking. I think it's entirely proper for Mr. Beam to point out, at least for future emphasis. Now you may proceed, Mr. Beam. And then Mr. Beam restates the question. I'll ask each individual, are you aware this is in the Florida Evidence Code? There is a psychotherapist patient privilege, which states if someone comes into you and speaks to you in confidence as a counselor, that is confidential, and that is the whole purpose of that privilege. And what goes on in there is private and not to be disclosed. Are you aware of that? Miss Wilkinson says yes. Mr. Graziano says, as a school counselor, and then Mr. Beam chimes in. It's a yes or no question. Mr. Graziano responds, can I elaborate on that? The court says, no, sir. He is entitled to have his question answered the way, so intimidation.
Yeah.
He is entitled to have his question answered the way he asked it. Were you aware that it was against the law so they're making it a crime to divulge the confidence of persons that approaches you in the counselor's in a counselor client atmosphere? Mr. Graziano replies, I understand that. Without a subpoena, he was subpoenaed to the sentencing by the attorneys. So under a subpoena, he has to answer the questions. But that's not how. So this is how they put the fear of God in people and scare them into following through with their. This is not only my opinion. This was Bob's opinion too on it. So this was just a scare tactic to shut him up. So Mr. Graziano continues. He says, I understand. Where am I at here? I skipped a page. I understand that without a subpoena, I couldn't do it, and I wouldn't do it. The court, if counsel didn't advise you of that, there is a privilege there of the patient that consults you, not one that can be waived one that can only be waived by that person. What Mr. Beam is pointing out to you is you apparently just violated the evidence code of the state of Florida. Thank you. You may be seated. And then it says, are you through, Mr. Manzo? Oh, I guess that was a judge asking my attorney. And Mr. Manzo says, no, Your Honor. Just briefly, I'd like to call Mr. and Mrs. Weber. This is good.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom gets up. Mrs. Weber, what would the judge, what would you have me know, Mrs. Weber? Your Honor, Rick is our son. I know Rick did not do this. My question to you is, why do we as parents, why were we kept out of the court? Why can't Mr. Doug Beam, the state attorney, produce our depositions that were recorded? He said he don't have them. They were recorded, and I can show you, Your Honor, where I told Mr. Beam when I went in. He said this happened between May 1st and May 31st, and I said, wait a minute. It was May 2nd, but you found out Rick had an alibi for that night and he was not around. I want him to produce our depositions so the court can see Rick did not get a fair trial. Our public defender would not let him bring in any witnesses for Rick because they said the little girl is not on trial. Rick is. Why is blah, blah, blah? Why is, oh, I guess the girl was in a foster home in California because her mother, this is my mom talking. Why is the girl in a foster home in California? Because her mother doesn't want her here. We found out a lot about this little girl. We know she lied. She has admitted that, and we'll get proof of that. And the judge just shut her up and said, thank you, ma'am. And then went and asked my dad, what would you have me do? And my dad was always very humble. And he just answered, Your Honor, if you could see where I'm coming from, I can stand here for an hour, but I won't take your time. All I ask, Your Honor, is that you be lenient as possible with my son at this time, because I know in due process we can clear Rick's name of all these charges. Thank you, Your Honor. And that was basically where he left it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the state attorney, I mean, the judge did bring up I do have a daughter. Okay, I don't know if I mentioned this in the last trial, in our last video. I do have a daughter, and when I was 22, I played semi-pro football for the Detroit Lions farm team over in Melbourne. They were called the Space Coast Lions, and everybody that was affiliated with that club had to be 18 years of age or older because we traveled. And it just so happens that I met and fell in love with one of the cheerleaders. Okay. And we dated I was 22. We dated until I was like 24, 24 and a half, somewhere in that ballpark. And then I caught her cheating, so we broke it off. But right before we broke off the relationship, I always thought that she was in college because she would go to school every day, and I was working with my dad's company. I was playing football, and I was going to school at night to get my stockbroker's license. So
the camera's losing you, Rick, a little bit.
okay, so you assume, so I assumed she was in college. Okay, well, it wasn't until like 2000, let's see, 80. I met her in 80 and 82. It wasn't until like 83, middle of 83, that I found out she was still in high school.
Oh, wow.
And she was 15 when we started dating.
Mm-hmm.
But her mother never said anything. Her older sister was also a cheerleader for the football team, never said anything. So, I mean, we dated for like a year and a half, but the judge threw that in at my sentencing. Well, obviously he has a habit of dating younger girls because the mother of my daughter was at my sentencing, and she did testify that she was the mother of my daughter. She had my daughter in 1986, so she was I was 26, so she would have been 19 or 20.
Mm-hmm.
She'd have been 20 then. So yeah, so I have a daughter from her, and that was in an ill attempt to try to win me back and to get married. I couldn't trust her after she cheated on me, so we did get back together because and that was, my parents were kind of like, she's a good girl. She made a mistake. Can you get over it, kind of thing, And I thought I could, and yeah, we got pregnant. But I went to prison. I did 3.5 years on 10 year, and then 10 years on probation. When I got out of prison, I immediately got back in touch with my daughter's mom, and started paying child support. I got married, um, and then I did the 10 years of probation, and during that time, I put my daughter through private school. Her mom didn't have a job, couldn't keep a job. Her mom couldn't keep anything. Um, so it was a blessing that we didn't end up together. But my daughter went to a private school. I paid for everything. And it was like every 2 years I was in court with her mother over more money because she knew I had a great business over here. I moved to Sarasota back in 1993. So I'd been out of prison, and I got out of prison in 1990. I met my ex-wife in 90 end of 1990. We got married in 91, in April of 91, and then we moved over to Sarasota because I couldn't find work over there, and I just wanted to get away from that area just because I didn't want any trouble, and moved over here and found out I couldn't keep a job here because as soon as you tell them you're a sex offender, you're basically fired. So I started a company, I started a painting company, and had a great business, and was able to put my daughter, like I said, through private school. Um, bought her, we couldn't see her that much because of the charge, and couldn't have her. I couldn't. My wife had to be present at all times whenever I was with her, which that wasn't a problem. But we got to travel with her. We got to spend summer. We got to spend 2 weeks every year with her. That was what we got from the state. Was I got 2 years. I mean, two weeks out of each year to see my daughter. So unless I went over to Melbourne to visit my family, and then I got to see her once in a while then too. But it was her mom kept her away from me for whatever reason. But so anyway, fast forward now to 2016. Now, okay, mind you, let's go back to 2000. In 2000, I finished the penalty phase. So I was done with all the nonsense, all the checking in, all the probation, all the blah blah nonsense, and I was a free man. In 2006, they came up with the sex offender registry. Now, according to the Constitution, the Fifth Amendment states plainly, no man can be punished twice for the same crime. But that's what they did. They basically put me back into the system and made it mandatory that I check in twice a year. And I did great until 2016. I'd gone through a divorce, and 2016 I was working for a company down in. I still had my business, but I was doing basically office remodel work. When a client would move out of a corporate office, we would go in, and if the new tenants wanted the room changed around, wanted things moved around, walls moved, walls added, or whatever, that's what I did. So I was doing that, and then I had gone in on a flip project with a friend of mine we bought a house to flip, and so I was working all day and then going and working on the house at night, and I completely forgot to check in 2016, and I was supposed to check in October. Well, in November, it hit me that I wasn't sure if I had checked in or not. So I called my probation. I called my officer at the sex offender registry, and she said, "No, you didn't check in. And oh, by the way, there's an APB out for your arrest. You need to turn yourself in." So I did. I turned myself in, and I ended up doing a year and a day on that charge.
Wow.
Went back to prison, and at the end of in April 10th of 2017 was the trial, and I did a year and a day, but I got out in February 14th of 2018, and then everything's been going great. I'm still checking in, but in 2021, last year, I had an asshole for a tenant. I mean, not a tenant, for a landlord. And this COVID thing, this COVID thing became so blown out of proportion. And he lives in Minnesota, but he was telling me I had to mandated that I had to be vaccinated for the COVID. And I'm like, I'm not getting a vaccine. I don't believe in it, you know. But so so there was a lot of friction between him and I, and it just came down to where he said, okay, you know what, September 15th, I want you out of the house. I've been there for 6 years, never missed a payment in 6 years, but because I didn't want it, because I wasn't going to comply to his demands of getting the vaccine, he made my life basically hell the last 6 months that I was there. So I wanted to get out, and that was my way out. But as a sex offender, they go around every neighborhood you go to, and if people ask, have you got a crime? Have you got a criminal record? You can't lie to them, because if you lie to them, that comes back on you. So trying to find a place to live, the first thing, if they ask, have you ever, do you have any felony charges on you? Yes. Got to give my name. They look, as soon as you look up my name, it's right there. I'm on the sex offender registry. So right then and there, you have no place to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you find a place, if they don't ask the questions and you find a place and you move in, the first thing that you do is you report your new address to wherever you're to the sex offender registry office.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing they do is they go to the neighborhood that you move in, and they put orange flyers, these fluorescent orange flyers, on everybody's doorstep. Just letting you know, there's a sex offender moved into your neighborhood at this address, and I've been targeted.
Mm-hmm.
I've been targeted several times. So they're not doing anything to help you get back into society.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I can go on about being innocent or guilty of my charge, the record pretty much states for itself whether I'm innocent or guilty. But there's other people out there that, I follow FAC, which is the Florida Action Committee, and they have told some stories about people that have just been, killed, or people that commit suicide because they can't handle the stress
Mm-hmm.
of not having a job, not being able to find a place to live.
Mm-hmm.
So and I mean, well, just a couple of months ago, I think it was Polk County that did a sting, and they used an adult dating site, and they put some information on there, an adult dating site. We're not talking about a porn site. We're talking about adult dating. So anybody who goes on these adult dating sites, you think you're talking to an adult. They have to be at least 18 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be on these sites. Well, this was a sting operation that was done by, I think it was Polk County Sheriff. But they arrested some people, and the one guy committed suicide because he 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 thought it was an adult. He thought it was an adult dating site and had no idea. And he apparently, well, I know how they interrogate. They are brutal. They are ruthless bastards when they interrogate you. And I mean, they have no idea what the hell's going on out here.
Mm-hmm.
And FAC just did I just got an email from them 2 days ago that I actually forwarded to Bob, and they just did a sting operation over in Polk County, and they busted a a, a lieutenant from another state, a cop from another state, one of the lieutenants that was here in Florida, over in Orlando, that he got busted in a sting, and a bunch of school teachers, a bunch of Disney employees at Disney. But the fact that cops, and I've seen several times where police officers have been caught in these stings. So they're out there making us look like we're the bad people, and they use these cases, but they refuse to look at my case. I mean, I have, over the last 36 years, I can't tell you how many organizations I have gone to with my case, but as soon as they understand that there was never a DNA done,
Mm-hmm.
that pretty much wipes out any chances of me ever getting this back into a courtroom, because DNA would have
It would exonerate you.
it would have exonerated me back in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But because they refused one,
Mm-hmm.
I'm screwed.
Yeah.
So
Oh man.
So yeah. So what questions do you have?
I just have we hit all the points that you wanted to get on the record again, Rick?
Yeah, but
I
the
think we
the
have, yeah.
the important one was the was the two psychiatrists, and then when my mom
Yeah.
because my mom, you know, they were sequestered out of the courtroom during the trial because the state said he was using them as their witnesses. But as I read to you from their statements in my sentencing, there was no way in hell my mom was livid. I mean, but this is what the people this is what the people see. Okay, they see that, whoa, his parents were sequestered. They were witnesses for the state, so they must have believed that he did it. But when you get to the sentencing and then you hear what my mom really had to say about it, you know, then people they when you get the whole truth and you get the facts, you know, we are so quick to make conclusions, and I know I'm guilty of it. I've learned not to judge people as quickly as I used to
Hmm.
because I know what it's like to be judged now. You know, it's
Hmm.
not fun.
Hmm.
It's not fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So Rick, where are we at here? What's the next step in your case, right? Where's your case today?
well, I was in court on Tuesday on the 20th, and it's funny you asked that. I get into court and Bob was there, and Bob was going to Bob wanted to as my ecclesiastical um counselor.
Hmm.
He stepped across the bar and the judge immediately, who are you? And Bob stated his name and said he was my ecclesiastic counsel, and the judge was like, and basically had the sheriff remove him
Hmm.
and put him back into the gallery of the courtroom. And then I had my chance to ask the state attorney some questions, and then the first question I asked the state attorney was, I said, "So you are an attorney, correct?" And he wouldn't answer me. He wouldn't even look at me, wouldn't acknowledge me. But the judge chimed in and says, "I can assure you, Mr. Weber, yes, he is a licensed attorney. He's a bar attorney." And I said, "Okay." So then I turned back to the state attorney and I said, "Can I get you to at least acknowledge that I exist? And can you look at me when I'm asking you these questions?" And he just kept looking down. So I fired my first question was, I said, "You understand that you are an attorney. So as an attorney, you swore an oath to uphold the Constitution for the United States of America." And he didn't answer. And the judge waited for a few seconds, and then the judge chimes in and says, "I'm assuming that you're objecting to that question." And the state attorney just says, "Yes, I am." So the judge,
The judge is counseling the attorney, the prosecutor, right?
exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So the judge says, "Okay, sustained." So then my next question, I just continue with my questions. I said, "So you are aware then, Mr. State Attorney, that in 20 in 2000, I had finished all the sentencing guidelines that were all the punishment portion of the sentencing in 2000. So in 2006, when you came up with this, when the state of Florida came up with this sex offender registry, I was put back on it. That was 6 years after I had 6 years of freedom. That's punishment. That's ex post facto punishment."
Hmm.
And he wouldn't even acknowledge me, wouldn't even look in my direction. And the judge just kept sustaining his, when he wouldn't answer, the judge would just sustain his not answer as he's not he's objecting, but he's not actually saying the words.
Hmm.
So but then the state attorney did chime in, and when I was done asking my questions, he did chime in and say, "You know, Your Honor, when we were here the last time, Mr. Weber was trying to get his records from from the sex offender registry regarding his email address, because that's what they're coming after me about. They don't have any. They said they didn't have my email address and that I had moved and didn't tell them where I had moved to. Well, because there was no place I could move to, first of all, in 2021, I moved out of the house, but every night I parked my truck in the driveway and slept in my truck so that I was on the property that was in the file, that so they knew where I was at. So if they ever drove by and they could see that I was there, or if they ever had asked questions, I would be sitting in the driveway and I only had to be there at night. I have a business to run, so I work during the day. So I was in the driveway where I was supposed to be. So when the state attorney mentioned the paperwork, I thanked him. Actually, I said, "Thank you, Mr. State Attorney." I said, "It just so happens, Your Honor, that he's correct. I did ask for those papers, and if you remember correctly, and let the record state, because it's on record, that when I was here 3 months ago, I told you that the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, FDLE, is where you get your records from. They said it was 3 weeks before I would that I would receive the paperwork, because they had to go in and redact a bunch of information. And when I asked the officer what does she mean by redacting, she said, well, we remove information that we can't let out. And I said, well, what would that information be? And she said, well, it would be if it's a minor, if it's a sex charge, and we also redact all emails. Okay. Well, then and I'm telling this to the judge. Well, that explains why the paperwork that I got from the state attorney, because the last day that I was in trial, and I was looking at 3 weeks before before the FDLE was going to give me my copies. That same day, the state attorney got them.
Mm-hmm.
How the hell did he get them before
Wow.
me? I'm the one that ordered them.
Wow.
He gets them, and then he tries to shoot them through an email, and I refused the email. I said, you need to follow the orders from the judge. The judge says any information that we share goes to the mail, the U.S. Postal Service. So you need to send this to the Postal Service so I have paper copies. So I got it like 2 weeks later, but there was no emails on it. So I said, so again, there was the redaction, and then I went into what had just transpired a couple of weeks ago with my truck. My truck had gone in because somebody had hit the side of the truck, and I had some work done on it. So during that time, I had to drive a rental. Well, when I went into the sex offender registries to register the vehicle so that I didn't get a violation charge, I gave them all the information. And as I'm getting ready to leave the office, and I'm telling this to the judge, as I'm getting ready to leave the office, I asked for a receipt for my records, and I was told I couldn't have one. And so then I was like, what do you mean I can't have one? I need a receipt to know for sure that the information I just gave you is what you entered in the computer. Well, we can't give you one. We have a private email address to the FDLE, but we can't give it to you. I said, well, can you give me another address that I can request the information? And he's like, you have to look that up yourself. And then I went off. I said, you know what? It's this kind of incompetence in this office is why I'm looking at 11 years. You all and you won't even give us a copy of the information that you say you're entering in the computer. So how the hell do I even know you're entering it in the computer? So then I told the judge I had to leave because I was afraid I was going to get arrested, because I was not happy about this. So then when I returned the truck and got my truck back, I had to go back and do the same thing. So 3 days later, I'm back at their office, and I asked them for a receipt again. No, we can't give you a receipt. I'm like, okay. I have the email address, so I emailed the FDLE, and of course they asked me a bunch of questions. What are you looking for specifically? Exactly what I've asked for. I want a copy of all of the transaction that just took place, where I was driving a rental truck, and that information should have been entered into my records, and I want a copy of it for my own records. Duh. So after, I think it was like 7 days or 8 days, they had to do it within 10 days. So within 8 days, they emailed me a notice with the information on it, but I never got anything in the mail. But at least I have an email with it. But if they won't give out information, how the hell do we know that they're entering the information that we give them?
No,
We
you have
don't.
no idea. Yeah.
And so then when you, and I know that they know I'm very active in what I'm doing with, how I see our government and how I understand. I'm starting to understand common law a lot better, and I'm doing a lot more reading and research, so I can, they know what I'm doing. I know my phone's tapped. I know my computer when I'm online. I know that, and they have all my information. So, and there's just some weird things that happen that when I tell people who don't understand it, they look at me like I got three eyes, but
Hmm.
I know my shit's being, I know when I send emails out, I know sometimes it doesn't go directly to where I send it.
Yeah.
But so I know they have my information.
Hmm.
So again, I don't know that they're documenting my information when I give it to them. And
Hmm.
when you ask them for receipts and they won't give them to you,
Hmm.
what does that tell you?
Yeah.
You know, what
Yeah.
does that tell you? I mean, it's so easy for them to if they have an attitude against you. And I know I pissed them off when I was in it because I called out the officer that I'm reporting to now is not the same officer that I started reporting to when I first started this. And she happened to poke her little head out from around the corner when she heard me getting upset. And I looked at her and I said, it's people like you and your incompetence in this office is why I'm looking at 11 years. And she
And
kind
let's
of
not
tucked,
forget, I mean, they lost the record of your first trial, right?
exactly.
It just disappeared. There was, I mean, it's
Well,
unbelievable.
they lost the
Yeah.
40 letters from the kids. They
Yeah.
lost, they lost they don't have my, my document with my signature on it at
Hmm.
the time that the girl initially said this took place. And they don't have, there's no copy of the alleged claim of whatever they gave to whatever the judge gave to the jury in his instructions. There's no record of that either.
Hmm.
I have no idea what the hell.
Unbelievable.
I have no
Unbelievable.
idea. I have no idea. So
Yeah.
why did the jury find me guilty?
Hmm.
Could it be because of a claim
Hmm.
that they said I said,
Hmm.
and that's what got me 36 years of hell?
Hmm.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
can't find it.
Yeah.
There's no record of it.
Yeah.
And again, you're just a you're just an ordinary person. I'm talking about the people that work in the records department in Brevard
Hmm.
County. They're like, this is, I mean, they're like, we've never seen anything like this before. And I'm
Hmm.
like, really? And I'm like, well,
Rick,
and
we're
they're
at 2 minutes. We're at 2 minutes here, then.
okay,
So yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
They're wishing me the best of luck in fighting this thing. So that's where I'm at with it right now. So
Mhm.
anything else you want to add to it?
No, I think we pretty much covered it. I think we do right now. So what? So do you have a date for your next court appearance? When are you in court again?
I'm back in court December 8th.
Oh, December 8th. So you got some time. I mean, yeah, you got some time. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
we're
is Bob gonna? What is Bob gonna be
yeah, we're gonna file.
participating in any capacity, or she's gonna be like in
Yeah,
the?
yeah, we're gonna file some paperwork, and
Okay.
we got some other things. We got some things we're gonna file. He's taking a couple of days to kind of figure some things out here,
Okay.
and then we'll get back to that.
Okay.
So yeah, but I feel very confident with his information because I'm doing a lot of reading and researching what he's telling me. I'm not just taking his word, and man, he's spot on so many things.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievable. He is definitely a very wise man,
Mm-hmm.
very wise.
So we're less than 1 minute, Rick, here. So I just want to make sure we don't get cut off here. Um,
Okay, okay,
but
I'm done.
any other final words or?
All I can say is if anybody wants to, if anybody's in Manatee County, it's December 8th at 1:30 in the afternoon is my next court date. If you really want to start seeing what's going on in the courts, go to traffic court. Just sit in on some of these court cases. You'll see
And
how
I'm gonna put those details in the description page for the video, Rick.
okay, okay,
Definitely will.
buddy.
I definitely will.
Okay,
So, all right,
okay.
we're at less than a minute, so just so we don't get cut off, I think this is good. So I'm just glad we're putting it out there again.
Yes, thank you so much,
Okay.
Luke. I appreciate you, man.
All right. Thank you, Rick. Hey, you have a great night. I'll see you.
You too.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.